What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Outfielder Podcast, episode 134, presented by Sensibly Loud Media. I am your host, J-Mac, a.k.a. Founder Numero Uno, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Popfly himself, Founder Numero Dos, Ben.
I love the idea, but, like, at a certain point, where do the dogs pee?
Baseball, Ben, what's going on, man?
Pretty good, pretty good. You know what? That's I think we're talking about bring your dog to the MLB park day.
Yeah, we were. That was really early on.
Which I still wonder that.
It's a really good question. You'd think that that's a really big problem that they have to deal with. And, like, I feel like we talked about it, and then we haven't really been able to look into it since.
No. And, like, I know my dogs. One of them is like me, and it's just a nervous wreck all the time, and, like, just kind of shaking there. That's Sherman, naturally. But I feel like our golden doodle would do pretty well at a ballpark. Like, just, oh, cool, friends, you know?
Yeah, I think my dog, he's a lab, and he's 75 pounds of scared fun. And it would probably be about in the same camp as Sherman. And I don't think he'd do well in that atmosphere at all. Unfortunately, because it feels like that'd be a lot of fun. But what are you going to do, you know?
My brother takes his dog every year to the minor league one for the St. Paul Saints or whatever. And so there's all these pictures of this beautiful pit bull wearing St. Paul Saints gear. It's pretty cute.
Your brother sends me some of the funniest things on Twitter. And it makes me laugh every single time. I can't emphasize how often it makes me laugh. It's every time.
Well, I do have a noteworthy shout out. J-Mac actually sent me something this week, and it was the best Instagram to follow. And it's a lawn care company out of Australia. So that way we can get our suburban dad yard cuts on. So thank you for that. Do you have the handle up?
I'm pulling it up right now, but those that have listened to this show know exactly how passionate we are about lawn care. And it's actually a pretty big debate pretty often. It's so it's an account that's based out of Australia, which makes it like a little bit funnier, right?
Yeah. It has 120 people following them, and these two Texans.
It's Frame It Lawns and Gardens. Frame it like you're framing a picture. Frame it Lawns and Gardens. And it's literally a before and after scene of lawns, and they're all shaggy looking in the first one, and then they're crappy, and then they're all spiffed up and looking great, where edging makes a difference in the second one.
And one of them too, like, and this is how much I started scrolling through it, like, you had the grass cut different ways, like a baseball field, you got the striping, like, it was incredible.
Yeah, no, they're on to something here. I sent it to you, and then I also sent it to the great Sambino, and I just sent I think I sent the same message I sent to you. I said, satisfying account to follow. Yep. And Sam replied back and said, 13 posts. Nice. In before the early regulars.
That's right. That's Sam to a T, though. So
absolutely. I said that's the goal. He knows.
Which, by the way, I do have one other humorous thing to happen. I recently am changing jobs at work, and I went to a staff meeting with people that you and I used to work with like 3 years ago. And the staff meeting is starting. It's my first meeting in there, and our old boss goes, "Hey, do you still have that baseball podcast?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, good to see you too." So yes, we do still have the baseball podcast, and shout out to Mike D from Arlington for remembering it 3 years later. We're still going strong, 134 in.
It's alive and kicking. Did you think we'd make it to like nearly 150 episodes? I know we pat ourselves on the back for this a lot, but like most podcasts don't get out of the gate.
No, and you could still argue how successful we are or are not, but we are certainly still alive and going strong.
And that's the thing. It's all about how successful you make it look, right?
That's right. That's why we are, trademark pending, America's favorite baseball comedy podcast.
That's true. And the thing is, the people that the listeners, they know. They know that we don't follow up on things, and they know that we don't, get to our ideas and whatnot that sound brilliant, but we don't do it. We do it what comes naturally.
Well, speaking of great ideas, coming soon, probably between now and opening day, we're going to do top 10 ball players of all time, where you and I go over, maybe get Jimmy or Sam to jump in and talk about our top 3 ball players. So I'm putting it out there into the ether so people hold us accountable.
So first of all, I'm absolutely all in on this idea. We did this on the basketball podcast, our top 30 basketball players of all time, which was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I feel like with baseball players, it's going to be a lot easier because I've been watching it so I've been watching both baseball and basketball my whole life, but I played baseball. There's something more organic about baseball players as far as judging how talented they are and stuff like that. It feels like it's easier to look back on their careers as a whole versus some NBA players, which have there's a lot of times where you've got really long careers, really short careers, and you have that in baseball too. But I think it's really difficult to narrow down the impact guys. Where do certain people fall, and when you start ranking them together, it gets really difficult because you're like, holy cow, I forgot about so-and-so.
XYZ, yeah.
And so it's going to take us a little bit of time. We're going to work on it, though. I think that what we should do is for the next episode, and maybe we'll do, since we've been doing every other week during the off season, maybe we'll see if Jimmy's involved around next week to get involved anyway. And let's see if we can hammer out, we'll just do it on the show. We'll hammer out our general, kind of criteria and structure. Yeah. We don't necessarily have to go with criteria because everybody's criteria is going to be different. But I think that we should talk about how we're going to kind of go about this and how we're going to look at it.
I agree completely. Love it.
So I'm looking forward to. So we said top 10 of all time
with 3 honorable mentions.
I think you're going to find that we're going to probably going to want to do like 20 because it's a lot of people.
Okay.
I know it can't be understated enough, but it's a lot of people. We'll see though. We'll see. We'll hammer it out and let's get Jimmy's opinion too. But let's call it a max of top 20, minimum of top 10.
Okay.
And we'll kind of work from there.
I love that. Those are good jumping off points. And we may have a lot of time. So I want to pivot to our first main story here because the idea is, yeah.
So before we get into the first main story, I hate to interrupt you here because it was a great transition. We love our transitions on the Outfielder podcast. I want to follow up on something from last week.
Okay, please. Yes.
So not 3 minutes ago on this very, very show, Ben, I just told you we don't follow up on things.
Yeah, that's good.
So I'm following up on something because we keep people guessing. We keep people working. You got to go. You got to go. You got to go. That's how it works here. Okay. So we talked about Mike Francesa last episode.
Okay.
And I have 2 clips. I'm going to play one for you now, and we'll close out the show with the other.
Okay. Yeah,
so
this is the sportscast dude in New York, right?
Correct. This is the guy, WFAN, Mike Francesa, one of the most legendary sports radio guys of all time. Well, Jimmy and I were telling you about this. We played a clip of of him naming off the Mets and the Yankees schedule for some god-awful reason.
Yes.
And it went on for far too long. Well, we told you about something tangentially, and we wanted to make sure to follow up on it. So Jimmy sent this over to us, and I responded with the one that we'll play to close out the show.
Okay, love it.
All right, so this is Mike Francesa. This is the clip that we told you about. You might have forgotten. It's been 2 weeks, but
I don't remember many things.
I know, it's fine.
Yeah, your first year of racing, when you're born, when you go to buy a horse, when a horse is born, a horse will be born. The most prominent months for horses being born are February and March. When that baby goes through the sales ring, okay, was born early, born late. You want to get earlier foals because they're older, and then every horse's birthday is New Year's Day. Every horse has the same birthday, New Year's Day. Every horse becomes a year older, whether it's born in April or born in January. The horse is born, his birthday is January 1. He becomes a year older on January. And so obviously, when you're at the sales, you want an earlier foal because they're more developed for the Triple Crown races and for the 2-year-old races because they've what you call late foal. Well, he's a late foal. Late foal means you're going to have to wait on him. So a horse is born in May. Now, they're not usually born after that. That's too late in the year. They're not born after that. There's a season for it. And May is late, really late. Most are born in February and March. So you're going to race at 2. You don't have to race at 2, but most time you will take a couple of races at 2. And then at 3, that's your Triple Crown year. That's the only year you're eligible.
All right.
I
Horse
have a question.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I get it where if people are wagering, and not that we would encourage that, but if someone is wagering, they want to know if they have like when the horse's actual birthday is, but like why not just say when the horse was born?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the idea is, and this is about horse racing, so this has nothing to do with the baseball podcast whatsoever, but I feel like it was important to talk about nonetheless. I think the thing that he's trying to drive home there is that all their like every horse turns another year old that on New Year's Day, regardless.
Right.
That's what he's trying to drive home at. But like, does he not explain it like somebody that's on this show that hasn't been doing it for 50 years?
Oh my gosh. Like there certainly could have been a better way to do this. Like, let me break this down. So number one, I'm brand new to this concept, but I'm going to break it down here for you and tell me if you're following. So Justin, in horse racing, it doesn't matter when the horse is born. They don't keep track of its actual age. They just keep track of whatever year it is. That's how old the horse is. So if the horse was born in 2012, okay, now you have a 9-year-old horse because we're past Jan 1st.
Correct.
So like I explained that, like a human.
In about 16 seconds.
Right.
Yeah. That was 1 minute and 34 seconds that he took to explain.
Good Lord.
And remember what Jimmy said. I mean, he's trying to fill 4 to 6 hours worth of time. So like the best part about Mike Francesa, and I love this guy because of this exact reason. It is just so absurd, like listening to this guy. And I think it's hilarious that it's just nothing but a stream of consciousness. Yeah. That's all it is. It's, he was in the middle of talking about, how the horse guide looks and how everything matches up for the races on Saturday, and then just launches into a minute and a half of about when horses' birthdays are. There's countless of these, countless
That's
numbers.
Awesome.
Like I said, we've got one more we'll close the show out with because I can't get enough of this. I'm addicted to listening to this stuff because this stuff is so funny.
And like I feel bad for the horses because then all their parties are the same week, and like how are they going to arrange that?
Well, that's the thing is you can't go to that many birthday parties. That's absurd. I mean, it's a lot of gifts to buy. There's
especially in the time of COVID, like it's just not smart.
I know we've talked about giraffes in the outfield before, but we have not talked about horse birthday parties before. And I'm glad that we finally got to it though. Only 134 episodes to get to it. What we got here.
Be a very thoroughbred conversation.
Oh, it's so good. Do you think that, never mind. Let's not get on a tangent. Let's go ahead and jump into the first story.
Okay, so speaking of COVID, speaking of COVID, we wanted to go ahead and at the very last part of the last episode, 2 weeks ago, we said, hey, MLB has not said what their 2021 plans are. It's bound to come out sooner or later. And within 35 minutes of our episode being done, Rob Manfred and Major League Baseball came out with what their schedule was. So if you were listening to our podcast on Tuesday, we once again gave you stale information. And for that, we're not sorry because we gave you the best darn information we had at the time. But I bring this up to say we now have 2021 Major League Baseball's sort of, schedule.
Do we applaud that?
Well, that's what I want to go ahead and talk about. So I'm going to lay out the initial thing of it first, and then I'm going to take you a run through just a couple headlines and kind of get your take, okay?
All right.
So basically, they went ahead and announced that it's going to be a full 162 game season.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to do interleague play again. This time, with the same East National versus American, East versus East, Central versus Central, West versus West. But basically, they're still planning on doing the whole darn thing from April 1st to October 3rd with All-Star break July 13th. They're planning on it with the World Series beginning October 26th. So they're going full hog on this.
So you mentioned at the beginning of this segment that if you listened last week, you got stale, wrong information. That's incorrect because this is exactly what I said was going to happen. Exactly what I said was going to happen.
Well, and that's fair. I just bring it up so as to say it's now confirmed that that's at least what their game plan is. So other things that are notable this year is this will be the last year that Cleveland plays as the Indians. In 2022, they're going to be officially changing their name, supposedly. So that's big announcement one. And the big announcement two is last year, I don't know if you remember, they were going to do the Major League Baseball Field of Dreams game in Iowa when it was Yankees versus White Sox. Well, that has been postponed to this year, so August of 2012.
Yeah, and they had the field ready and everything. They were ready to go for it. No, I don't. I'm just not surprised, man. Like, I mean, if you look at like what all the other leagues have done, the NBA's traveling, the NFL's traveling. They've had COVID, cases just like anything else, and they've just kept going. And that's it's next man up, and you've got to keep with the product. It's a brand. You can't be dead for too long, and they know that. We talked about it being a money thing, and it is. That's all it is. Because you think about it. It's in the players' interest to want to get things going too and play a full season, given that they've got a new CBA to bargain this coming summer.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly it.
That's all it is, really and truly. So you've got to replace the revenue, and you've got to get it going. And I'm whether that's a good decision or not, I don't know. I'm not. We've been over all that, but I think it's not surprising in the least bit.
Well, and so that's where, number one, you've always said on this pod, just follow the money. And, last year, as they were playing the 60-game season, even when there were COVID snafus, they kept going. They kept playing, and they're like, oh, we've started it. Like, there's no chance that they're not going to finish it. Yeah. So it makes me agree with that, but I just want to read you a couple different news headlines that have come out just in the last 24 hours.
Okay.
And I want your kind of take. So just 2 hours ago, Sports Illustrated says, here we go again, MLB owners and players odds over when to start the season. So 2 weeks ago, Major League Baseball announced when they were starting the season. 2 hours ago, they're still fighting. The Boston Herald, as of 25 minutes ago, says the Red Sox expect 2021 season to start on time. And then Cactus League cities, this is from Ballpark Digest, Cactus League cities to MLB delay the 2021 spring training launch.
Yeah, I saw that this afternoon.
SB Nation, here's another clue that MLB spring training might not start on time. So it sounds like Major League Baseball is like, nope, we've announced it. This is what's happening. But not necessarily everyone is baked in. What are you going to do if the cities refuse to host the teams?
I think they'll find a place to play no matter what. Is that really I understand that. I do. I get it. But at the same time, majority of these ballparks are outdoors. You can stay separate away from people if you do limited fans and all that, which, debatable about where you are with that. But I wouldn't do it personally, but I don't have an undying need to go to, a sporting game that I can watch on television. Yeah. So that's fine by me. That's typically how I feel about it anyway. That doesn't really change a whole lot, but it does make you think that there's someone pushing that narrative out there that the players don't want to get this going quickly, that there's going to be resistance with that. And I don't know. I just don't think that there is. I think there's last year. Okay, fine. They shortened the season, all that stuff. And they still made it work pretty well. But I think you look at another season of lost revenue, I just don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to continue on, because even at its worst, whenever it all broke back. And so remind me, when was it all kind of start? Was it right when the season got started, when everything started to fall apart with like the Cardinals and the Marlins and all that stuff?
Yeah. So the season started, I believe it was July 15th or something last year.
Okay. So July.
And it was within 2 or 3 weeks of that is whenever the Cardinals thing happened. And
it was like immediate though. It was immediate, and we all thought it was over. We thought it's just going to stop right immediately, and it didn't. And I think that if they saw that they could brave that, and it's even, now the other leagues have done it, and the NBA's done it to where, they're traveling. They've tried to condense their schedule as much as possible to eliminate as much travel as you can. That's obviously the goal here. So that's fine. You do that. You take, like I said, you take as many, precautions as far as, contact tracing and all that as seriously as you can. You stay away from each other. You do your part like they did last year, because they did a great job with that. You're going to have some games, but what I'm saying though is the way they're looking at this though is like, that's how they're going to do it. And then they're going to chalk it up as, well, say we're going to miss a few games here and there. Like there've been NBA games that have been having before, not forfeited, but just postponed because of COVID. They don't have enough players and stuff like that. You're going to see that. And that's just that's better than losing a whole season in their eyes, or a half a season or whatever.
And I hear that. But last year they were taking precautions around travel and minimizing schedule. We have no indication that they're going to do that. Well, that's the thing, is they're saying that they're having these precautions, and we saw the failure in testing, contact tracing. We even saw it whenever someone who had tested positive during the World Series not only continued to play, but then went on field with a mask to celebrate.
Boy, was that not talked about enough.
Well, what I'm saying is that, like, I don't necessarily believe in their willingness or ability to do it the right way. And, at this point, it seems more like both a skill issue and a will issue.
I agree with you. I don't disagree at all. That's the funny part about it. I'm just telling you what they're looking at it like. They're going to say, you know what, that's a lost cause, because that's all they ever look at this like. It's just like anything else. These guys, we talk about like player and like empowerment and all that kind of stuff, and at the end of the day, these guys are going to end up getting stomped on as much as humanly possible and taking advantage of it. And unfortunately, that's the game you play, and that's the career you choose and all that kind of stuff. And that's just what this is all about, is money. And I'm not saying that it's the right thing to do. I told you, I'm not even commenting on that part of it. But what I'm saying is that's how they're going to look at it, is we're not losing another season. That's just not possible.
Yeah.
Because I think if you lose another season, you come damn close to losing the whole damn thing. I think it severely changes the whole structure of what baseball looks like. If you went to another 60-game season, there's a possibility you weather it, but baseball's in way worse shape than it feels like, I think.
Okay. You think it's being held together by what, duct tape and some toothpicks?
Yeah, I think it was always that, though. I think there are a lot of greedy owners in this league, and it's like this in every league. But they buy the teams to milk as much money as they can out of it, because it's one of the only assets on earth that continually grows in value, and you can put minimal effort into what the product you put on the field, as long as you try every now and then, and you somehow get away with it. Look at how excited Jimmy was about Stephen Cohen buying the Mets, and what that means for the future, and how stunned he was that they pulled off, that Francisco Lindor trade, and all those things. Like, those, at the end of the day, I think that these guys are not always in it for the right reason. I'm not saying that they're all bad or I don't really care. To me, it doesn't really affect me in that way. I try to ignore it as much as I can, because I hate the ownership of my team more than just about anything. And that's crazy. That should not be the case. These are, people that are spending a lot of money to buy these, but they're not always doing it for the right reason. So I say all that to say, I think that they think with their wallets first. And I don't think that always is in the player's best interest here. Does that make sense?
It does.
Again, not commenting that it's wrong or right.
No. I'm with you. But in that case, who is culpable when fans get sick and die, or a player gets sick and dies? And I'm not saying we could be culpable, because we're talking about it and watching it. So I'm just saying, if you start to unpull that thread of the sweater, what are we going to end up with?
Yeah.
Because we are now in a worse COVID spot than we've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially 10 weeks ish until Major League Baseball is supposed to start. I would love to say that everyone in the stands will be distant and masked up, but I'm
Yeah.
I
It's hard to
haven't
be
seen-
realistic.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so to me, it just seems like wanting to do something and then enabling yourself to do it wrong is not like the best course
Yeah,
of action.
Yeah, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to. And but,
I agree with you, though, that it is thinking with the wallet, and especially because it's always worth pointing out that their collective bargaining agreement expires at the end of this season. And
Yeah.
so the agreement between the ownership and the players union, that's what's at stake here. And it makes sense that if ownership thinks they're going to have to give a little more in the off season, that they're trying to get more of that money now.
yeah, I think so. I think that's a big part of this. And I think there's just it's like swimming upstream kind of thing. You're flailing as quickly and putting in as much energy and swimming as hard as you can to try to make leeway there, but you're really fighting a losing battle in that way. I think so. Like, I don't want this to become like a huge COVID discussion necessarily, but it matters here in the context of this. I honestly think if we're being very realistic, and I'm not condoning this won't be the route that I choose to go, but I think that by the time we get to like May and June, when a lot of people have had the vaccine, I think people are just going to pull the ripcord on the lawnmower, and it's going to be all wheels off. I really do. So unfortunately, that's not how it should be, but realistically, and I think MLB owners are counting on that. And I think that they're counting on their product to be rip-roaring ready to go by that point, which it won't be because of the things you pointed out before. But
right. Well, and yes, I agree. And when you factor in how they still, once again, I wonder how much it grinds their gears that they weren't the first sport back, because they could have been and they should have been.
Dude, there's so many times I think about that. So many times. It's crazy.
Well, let's do a slight pivot. So still talking 2021 Major League Baseball season, but this is a little bit of your opinion, J-Mac, because it's still up in the air as to whether or not they're going to approve expanded playoffs again and universal DH, at least in the playoffs. So do you think that helped baseball?
Help baseball in what context as far as leverage goes?
Leverage, players into it, fanship.
The product is so much better. It's so much better. There is zero reason for a pitcher to bat. I understand what Jimmy's saying as far as like, I understand what Jimmy's saying as far as it's just something he's grown up with. It's part of the game. It's a nuance of the game that is really neat. And I don't think it really matters that much, to be honest, but I understand where the sentiment comes from. But I mean, coming from a team who has a DH, I mean, it's the only way to go. There's no reason to watch a pitcher bat in that ninth hole. So that's something I think they need no matter what. I think they will hammer that out. I think that they're just going to cram that kind of change right into all this and be done with it. Expanded playoffs, I think, will probably, I mean, they have to agree on this before camp starts, right? Is that kind of what
I think so.
Give or take? Yeah. I think that's what it was last year. So they have to agree on this before camp starts. I could see the owners wanting to do that and the players probably giving in that sense.
Yeah. I think from a player standpoint, what do you have to lose?
Yeah. I mean, other than your life, but
Yes, but I mean specifically as it relates to changing the DH rule.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's just one of those things. No, for sure. I think it's something that needs to happen though. I would love to see that actually be instated and then remain a thing, because it seemed like a much better product whenever you're just looking at two teams that have played by the same set of rules. That's really the biggest thing that I've never been able to wrap my head around with it, is just that the fact that two leagues play by two different rules in the same sport. You have the NFC and the AFC in the NFL, and there's no difference in rules. It's still just as spirited. It was hell of a fun time whenever we were watching the World Series this year, or really all throughout the playoffs. You had teams like the Padres and Atlanta and stuff like that had a really good, well-built team for a DH type situation. just don't see why you wouldn't do it.
Right.
One other thing about the 2021 season coming up that I'd like to note, the Blue Jays might be the best goddamn team in baseball.
Really? Tell me more.
Do you know? So have you seen what their acquisitions have been over the last probably week?
Mm-mm.
So tell you what, pull that up for me. I will kind of start talking about where the Blue Jays have been. The Blue Jays have been a train wreck for majority of the time that I can remember. They're sort of like, if you're an NFL fan, they're like watching the Buffalo Bills in the AFC East, where they have these flashes of being pretty good, but never quite get it, and they're always kind of that team, you know. And I think there's a really interesting faction of people that are fans of that team, but I don't know that they always represent Canada in the best way. So that all being said, they're just one of those teams that sort of pitters and putters along. And up until now, so they've basically been burning it down for, I mean, the last time that they were really good was when like Jose Bautista was there and they had David Price and all that stuff.
Yeah, that feels like 2011, 2012, somewhere in there.
That was like probably 2015, 2016, something like that.
Okay.
It was a little later than that, but yeah.
I just remember they played the Rangers in the playoffs and like there was a fight and then the audience started raining trash on the field and the game ended up taking like 4.5 hours.
Well, wasn't that whenever like the Rangers had like a passed ball or something like that, and they didn't like the catcher like throw the ball back to the pitcher and he miss it, and then they snuck in a run. Wasn't there some kind of bullshit that happened?
It sounds right. I don't recall, but that does sound right.
All right. Did you find this information?
Yeah, so it looks like they have landed George Springer of the Houston Astros.
So you're looking at George Springer.
And it looks like they're in talks trying to get Chris Bryant.
Mm-hmm. You're looking at Kevin Biggio, Bo Bichette.
Oh, my God.
Dude, this team...
Tanaka's on the table.
Oh, and Vlad Jr.
Jeez.
Yeah, this team is going to be ridiculous.
Wait, how many of those are confirmed?
They have Derek Fisher, the baseball variety, almost all of them.
Really?
Yeah. George Springer's done, 6-year deal.
Jeez.
127 million, 145 million, something like that. Yeah, dude. This team's going to be very, very, very deep. They've got good pitching. If they add, I don't know what I think about Tanaka. We talked about that last episode. I'm surprised he's a free agent still, but he is a little older. He's had Tommy
34, maybe something like
32,
that.
Yeah, 32 or 34. I can't remember what we said last episode, but yeah, I mean he's
32.
He's just one of those guys where you don't really know what to do with them. It tends to happen to those guys that come over from the Nippon League that have pitched a lot coming into their MLB careers. So, big additions in Toronto. They're really going all in with this thing. I think this is going to be a big year to see what Vlad Jr. is.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Is as an AL East follower, what's your take on what that does to the division? Because it was not a bad division last year.
They're probably going to be the best team in the division. They're going to battle it out with the Yankees a lot, but I think they're still better than the Yankees. It's going to depend on how their pitching looks, I would say. But I think those are the top teams, the only top teams, really.
What about the Rays?
Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't know what the Rays, I don't know what, like they traded Blake Snell. Like, I don't know what they're really doing right now, I guess. But they're the top 3 teams then, for sure. There's no doubt about that.
So where does that leave Boston?
It's going to depend on whether the Orioles turn the ship around this year finally and start really getting something out of all of their young talent. I mean, that team has been full of no names for a couple of years, but I mean, they're just growing young guys. That's all they're doing. So, and paying, what's his name out there? Chris, I can't believe I'm forgetting his last name. Chris, the dude who was like really, really damn good and then left got paid, stopped doing steroids and just became absolutely terrible. Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how that shapes up. But the best way to describe what I think the Red Sox are going to be this coming year is they are built very similarly to how they were in 2013. Ironically enough, when they won the World Series, but they had no business really winning the World Series that year. They just, they had something to play for kind of thing, and that matters no matter what. But it's a bunch of lovable guys that are good with the media, that are fan friendly. Feels like a bridge kind of thing, bridge year. That's
fair.
That's what you're looking for. They're probably going to trade Xander Bogaerts. I mean, there's a lot going on there. So,
well, I don't think that the Rangers are going to have a good year. So what do you do? We'll get to our full season predictions when we figure out when the actual season is going to start. But I think that what have we always said about the Orioles? Hey, Camden Yards is a great place to see baseball. That's how I feel about the Rangers. Is hey, at least the new Globe Life's a nice ballpark.
We've never even been there.
I've seen it on television.
Chris Davis is who I was thinking of, by the way.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Didn't he play for the Rangers for a little bit? I think he did.
I think so.
Sure. Anyway, seen it on television. That's unfortunate.
Speaking of other things we've seen on television or read in the media, we had a notable... Oh, yeah. Listener Dan writes in, they have no business winning it any year. I assume you're talking about the Rangers. And as someone who I believe spent like 20 years of your life in North Texas, you should really think about that.
Okay. He'll have him get back to us.
He'll get back to us. We'll vet it through our people. No, I'm kidding. So, yeah, don't forget, if you like what you're hearing, please interact with us. We can see your comments and stuff, and we'll try to call you out on the show. So thank you, by all means, Dan, for jumping in, albeit chirping.
Yes.
So, notable baseball passing this past week. J-Mac, we lost a legend in Hank Aaron.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Larry King.
The different types of legends, I think.
Big hit to the suspender industry, like I said in our group chat the other day. Big hit. Yeah, Hank Aaron. If we're being honest, kind of thought he was already dead. Didn't realize he was still alive. Does that make me a shitty baseball fan?
Just a little bit.
So let me ask you this, because this is a good thing that I bet a lot of people. I bet a lot more people are in the camp than I am than you would think. But I think there's a good amount of people that look at it like, if I didn't remember it in my lifetime, And I'm not saying that's always the rule, but like I always wonder, and I want to break down some very interesting Hank Aaron kind of factoids here in a few minutes. Okay. Because my question always goes, and we've actually talked about this before, and I want to say that we did this, Ben, maybe you weren't on the show. Maybe this was during one of the live streams of the World Series that we did with, I'm pretty sure we did this with Marty maybe, but we talked a lot about what if Babe Ruth played today? What would he look like? We know what he would look like, but what would that look like as far as result on the field? Would it be as effective? Would he be who he is without the time frame that they played it? And I think that goes for a lot of the people that I never saw with my own eyes, kind of thing.
So I hear that, and to answer your Babe Ruth question, he'd look like a barrel with little toothpick legs trying to run around the bases. But to answer your question in a broader sense, I agree with that, but that seems like a slippery slope to say if I didn't see it, it didn't happen, and then
Absolutely.
before you know it, you're saying, oh well, I can't verify that the Earth is round, so how do I know? And like that's a real dangerous path.
Well, as someone who's fallen off the side of it before,
yeah, that's
I know.
Fair.
I know.
But what I'm saying though is,
no, you're right. I'm not saying. I guess what I'm saying is I don't care as much about the lore of it, right? Like,
okay.
Does that make sense? Like, it's not that I don't care about it necessarily, and it's not that I don't think it happened, but I do always wonder about that, about like how transcendent people would be, because it's like I look at Michael Jordan is a great example. I keep going back to basketball today, but it's where my head's at, I guess. But it's like, would he be dominant today? There's not a question in my mind, kind of thing. And we'll start talking about player criteria because we talked about our top 10 thing. But in my mind, it's like if I'm looking at someone's career, I want them to dominate. When I look at Barry Bonds' career, he dominated.
Okay.
You know, that kind of thing.
I would say just by one stat alone, let me throw this out there because it was one of the most mind-blowing things that I saw, and it's very tweetable, you know, but in his 23 years as a major leaguer, Hank Aaron was in 25 All-Star games.
Yeah. The most of any player in MLB history. That's incredible.
So at least you can say that he was better than his peer group.
For sure. For sure. And so I think, so I'm glad that we're going to do the top 10 or 20 or whatever, because I keep kind of bringing it back to that for a second, because I think it's going to force me and all of us really to take a look at some guys that maybe, again, it's not that I think less of Hank Aaron or anything like that. It has nothing to do with that. I just didn't witness it. So it's not as exciting to me, I guess is what I'm saying. And so I love looking back at this stuff in retrospect and really trying to break it down analytically and think through it. I found some Hank Aaron facts that I'd like to share with you if you will let me.
I would absolutely love that.
Also, before we start this, I would like to point out that you are the resident historian on this podcast. So having this discussion with you and getting you to agree with me was going to be a uphill battle to begin with.
Okay.
No pun intended.
Love it.
Okay. All right. So I found an article that was over at The Ringer, and it was basically Hank Aaron's greatness by the numbers. Okay. The number one thing was Hank Aaron was in an All-Star game in 21 seasons, the most for any MLB player in history. Now, I'm wondering if there's ambiguity there. I think you said 24.
Well, so the way I have it and the way I've read it is he was in 25 All-Star games in 21 seasons, but the reason being is there were a few times where they had like 2 All-Star games in a year.
Why would you do that? So
hey man, the 50s or 70s were a strange time.
Wait, so they did this like 2 All-Star games in a year as early as or as recently as like the 70s?
Well, I don't know when it was, but it was sometime between 55 and 75.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That seems way too recent for us to be meddling around with the amount of All-Star games we're playing. Why would there not only be one?
Well, that's what happened.
Okay. No, I'm with you. It's just hilarious nonetheless. Let's put the interns on researching that. How about that?
Oh, please. Yes.
Number 2, he received 25 total All-Star nods because of multiple games and some seasons. Also the most ever. So same thing. So the top 2 facts you got right there out of the gate. Okay.
Perfect.
Number 3, every season from 1955 through 1973, a span of 19 seasons, he received an All-Star and MVP votes. That's both. That almost never happened. His worst performance at the plate in any of those seasons came in 1955 when a 21-year-old Aaron posted a 141 OPS plus, meaning he hit 41% better than the league average hitter.
In his worst year, he was 41% better than average?
Correct, yes. For reference, a 141 OPS plus is David Ortiz's career mark, and that was Aaron's worst performance over nearly a 2-decade stretch.
That's ridiculous.
Aaron, of course, is second on the career home run leaderboard with 755 dingers, and his most memorable moment came when he broke Babe Ruth's long-standing record with number 715.
Who's Babe Ruth? Just kidding.
I don't know. Yeah, some spare that boozes and smokes in the dugout and all that. Aaron infamously never reached 50 home runs in a season, meaning like the likes of Brady Anderson and Greg Vaughn bettered his best single season total. Are you familiar with either of those fellows?
No.
Me neither.
So that just tells you that he was a consistent performer, but not always hit it out of the park, which makes him being the number 2 home run king of all time massive.
Correct. Instead, Aaron reached 755 thanks to They spelled a word wrong in this article, so it threw me off. Due to his consistency and longevity, he hit 40+ home runs 8 times. Only Babe Ruth had more. He hit 30+ homers 15 times. Would you like to take a guess with who that is tied with the most ever with?
How many is it?
15. So he hit 30+ home runs 15 times. There's only one other person to tie him. I'll give you a hint.
I'm going to guess Griffey.
Well, that's a good guess, but no. That's a really good guess, actually, but no. He was a Yankee.
Oh, God.
He was a Ranger.
If you say A-Rod, I'm going to lose my S.
A-Rod. Dude, I can't wait to see where like A-Rod falls into this whole conversation of top players.
Don't do it to me.
And he hit 20+ home runs 20 times.
God.
That's absurd. Even though his home run total is Aaron's most recognizable accomplishment, he was also an all-around superstar. If anything, is underrated by his intense focus on his long balls. In various seasons in his career, Aaron led the league in hits, doubles, homers, extra bases, intentional walks, runs, RBIs, sac flies, batting averages, slugging percentages, and OPS.
God. At this point, he's showing off.
I know. He's literally the most all-around player in the world. All right. He's hit more singles than Wade Boggs. He's hit more doubles than Cal Ripken Jr. He hit more triples than any current active player.
Oh, my God.
He stole more bases than Larry Walker. He's a career leader with 1,477 extra base hits.
That's ridiculous.
He's also the career leader in total bases with 6,856, more than 700 more than the second place guy, Stan Musial.
Stan Musial. Slam and Stan.
Musial. That's right.
Played for the Cardinals in the 40s.
That's right. You've told me about him before for some weird reason. The leader, 700 more than the second place guy.
That's nuts.
That's nuts. Career home run leader Barry Bonds could have hit 200 more home runs, and he still would have been short of Aaron's total bases.
One more time?
So, career home run leader Barry Bonds could have hit 200 more home runs and still would have been short of Aaron's total bases.
Oh, my God. That's ridiculous.
Let's see what else. Oh, here's a good one.
Very productive at the plate.
Very productive gentleman. Career singles leader Pete Rose could have hit 1,100 more singles, and he still would have been short of Aaron's total base record.
Oh, my God.
Aaron drove in 2,297 runs, the most in MLB history. He scored 2,174 runs, too, tied fittingly with Babe Ruth for the fourth most ever.
God.
Let's see. He outside the batter's box, Aaron was also a tremendous fielder. He won 3 Golden Gloves in a row and probably would have won more if not for Willie Mays and Roberto Clemente, who rightly dominated the NL outfield voting in that era. I mean, yeah, I would think so.
Which, by the way, let me interject. So I read a weird stat on him the other day that he was offered to play for the Giants. So he was going to be one of Willie Mays' teammates. He had the Giants contract in his hand, but the Braves offered him $50 more a month. So he says, that's the only thing that kept Willie Mays from being my teammate was $50.
That's unbelievable, which was probably like $500 a month back then, right?
Yeah, but still.
No, I know. It's absurd regardless. Okay, so advanced defensive stats are tenuous before the 21st century. Obviously, Aaron stands out nonetheless. According to the Total Zone system, Aaron is one of the 10 best right fielders on record at 98 career runs above average.
Okay,
so that's basically like WAR, but with runs kind of thing.
Yeah.
Bill James once wrote of Ricky Henderson, if you could split him in two, you'd have 2 Hall of Famers. The same is true of Aaron, who played well enough and long enough for 2 Hall of Fame worthy careers. Aaron was worth 73.9 wins above replacement in his 20s. 7th all time. 73.9. wins over replacement.
Ridiculous.
He also was worth 66.7 wins above replacement in his 30s, fifth all time. So in his 20s, he had a win. He was worth 73.9 wins per season more than the average player substituted in his position in his 20s. In his 30s, he was only 66.7 wins better.
Oh my God.
There's almost no drop off whatsoever. That's a rounding error.
That's ridiculous.
The only player ahead of him in both decades, Babe Ruth, whose home run record Aaron then broke in his 40s. That's absurd.
Oh my gosh, man.
Let's see. What else have we got here? In the 1957 World Series, Aaron hit .393 with 3 home runs as Milwaukee beat the Yankees in 7 games, winning the city's only World Series trophy. He is part of yet more fun facts than first. In a game in June 1961, Aaron was part of MLB's first quartet to hit back-to-back home runs, along with Eddie Matthews, Joe Adcock, and Frank Thomas.
Those guys are probably like, we hit home runs with Hank Aaron.
Dude, whenever I see a pitcher get taken back to back to back, I know how that feels. It sucks. But it's exactly like being hit with a golf ball. If someone hits you with a golf ball, one of you is laughing and one of you is not. Always.
Okay.
It's the same exact thing here.
Is there an awful lot of that I should be concerned about?
I've been on the receiving end of both. One is a lot funnier than the other. That's all I can tell you.
Okay.
I'm just saying, it sucks, but it's great from the outside if you watch it happen, even if it's your own team. It's still pretty funny.
Okay.
Because it's just so demoralizing.
Yeah.
It really is. Aaron was the first player to reach both Hall of Fame-worthy batting thresholds of 3,000 hits and 500 home runs. He could run too. He retired with 240 career steals and was only the 3rd player after Ken Williams and Mays to post a 30-30 season.
Jeez.
That's absurd. Of the 68 pitchers Aaron faced most often in his career, he homered at least once off of every one of them.
Oh my God.
Like many fun facts, this one mixes a baseline of truth with a misleading twist. I love the headline on this one. Hank hit 755 of those brotherly home runs. Tommy hit 13. So he played with Tommy Aaron, his brother, right?
Oh, okay.
And 755 home runs total. Tommy hit 13 of those.
Good for Tommy. Showing up. Doing the light lifting.
Absolutely. He smashed Sammy Koufax to a slash line of 362, 431, and 647.
That's ridiculous, because that was Sandy's best peak is when Aaron started doing well.
He hit Steve Carlton 342, 342, 395, and 630.
Good night.
Anyway, lots and lots of crazy records smashed by this guy, really and truly. And we hadn't even really gotten into the racial part of it that he's, he endured of being a black man playing baseball at that time.
Yeah. I mean, he was one of the last surviving Negro League players, having played for the Indianapolis Clowns, which is just a weird name.
Dude, did they have a logo? Please say they had a logo.
I'll find it.
Okay.
We'll tweet it out. Oh, it's just a baseball logo. It's not creepy. Anyway, so he played for the Indianapolis Clowns in '53. He said he idolized Jackie Robinson growing up, and then when he joined the majors in '54, I mean, he played against Jackie Robinson for a couple of years because Robinson didn't retire until '57, I think.
Yeah. Okay. That's crazy, man. What a time to like kind of be in your prime and still kind of having to fight the man at every single turn. That's just
Dude,
insane,
man. Someone quoted that in the 50s. Oh God, where was it? But basically, he led the league in everything except being able to get a hotel room.
Wow.
Because they wouldn't, you know,
Yeah.
the hotels
Yeah.
in the South were still segregated, and it was in the height of Jim Crow.
It's a funny yet sad fact.
No,
Yeah.
I knew why you were laughing. I get it.
Yeah. No, but it is. It's a sad thing. It was a fight for something that you and I will never understand, kind of thing, and that's admirable to say the least. Not to mention, this dude is, I mean, rivals one of my favorite players of all time as far as numbers and everything goes. I mean, strictly as a baseball player, he's a phenomenal baseball player. Now, again, like I do always wonder about the time you played and what the league was like, but it's not like he wasn't hitting against Sandy Koufax.
Right.
I mean, he was arguably one of the best guys to come along until Randy Johnson, probably. Like, I mean, that's a hell of a career and a hell of a thing to be able to hang your hat on, I guess. And it's, like I said, I felt bad that I didn't even know he was alive, but I really thought he was dead. So
no, that's fair. Well, rest in power, Hank Aaron.
Yes. All right, do we want to do the final clip of Francesa?
I am so ready.
Okay. So, like I said, we've been in the vein of naming horses and talking about horses' birthdays and all that. So this is the other clip that Jimmy sent to me, this is the one I sent back to Jimmy when he sent me the horses. All have the same birthday. All right, ready?
Yep.
If you're wondering how that works, you can name a horse Jeter, Mantle, Facci. You can't name a horse Dr. Facci. You can't name it Anthony Facci. Dr. Facci, they might quibble about. Basically, what you can't do is you can't use someone's full name without their permission. You have to get their permission in writing. If you do get their permission in writing, like there was a horse named Chris Everett once. There was a horse named Bobby Mercer. If it's your full name, you have to get the person, and the person is a famous person. You have to get their full. The Jockey Club would ask that you bring a written permission signed by the person. But last names, you can use any last name because nobody owns a last name. They only own a full name. So the Jockey Club would always allow. There was a horse named Jeter, as a matter of fact. There was a horse named Mantle. I think there's been more than one named Mantle, because every amount of years you can renew the name once a horse has been gone long enough, as long as it's not a famous horse. And now there is a horse named Facci who what happened is the people thought they had a nice horse. And they felt, here's a guy who's been in the news a lot. So, it made sense. It would catch people's eyes. People like to catch people's eyes with their names. There's a lot of pandemic names. Now, I hate horses that have no space in between the words. A lot of people only name the horses one word. Claiborne Farm's always done that. Only name the horse one word. If you use multiple words, if you use spaces between the words, that counts as a character. You're allowed 18 boxes. If you use a space, that's a box. If you run out of and you jumble it all together, you're allowed to do that. But that always, I never like that when I look at that. Never have. The best I think I give you is if you go to one of the sites you use, like Netflix or with Amazon or Hulu or anything, and you go searching, and you have to go to the space bar and everything else. Same thing with this. The space bar counts. So you get 18 characters.
Oh, the space bar counts, Ben.
I've been told that. That's and that's like a new clip. Like he was talking about Fauci. No one knew who Fauci was before March, except his family. Poor guy.
June 3rd.
Oh my God.
It's become so blatant that, well, I mean, it's not a thing anymore, thank God. But I mean, it was just so much of that. And it makes me laugh so much. I know it's ridiculous. I'm sure people are tired of it already because he's exhausting to listen to in a weird way. But like, you just walk away from it with so many questions that you don't even know what they all are.
Dude, 100%. Well done. Good find. Thanks to Jimmy for sending it in, and good job doing that. Well, if you like what you're hearing, make sure to check us out. We are at sensiblyloud.com. Plus, we are all over your social media pages. Huge props to the people who commented on this one. We ran one from Dan out there, but we had a few more that didn't make the cut. So if you like what you're hearing, don't forget, rate, review, subscribe. That helps us out. And don't forget, you can interact with us live and in show. We'd love to hear from you. Big props to JMac for producing this and every other episode. Y'all wear a mask, wash your hands. Don't storm the Capitol. It's going to be good.
We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in for episode 134 of the Outfielder podcast. We'd like to thank all of our fans, Sensibly Loud Media, our sponsors, and those with the sharp eye to keep the runners close. Grounds crew, please keep patrolling that outfield. Big ups to Kevin Towers. Don't text and drive. We'll see you right back here next time on the Outfielder podcast.
We live for